today's video, we will be doing something slightly different. How likely is each one of these quote-unquote toss-up states expected to flip? Now, you have the same states on your screen as always, and we have these 4 categories. Likely flips are states I do believe will flip in 2024. Possible flips are states there is a good possibility of flipping. I don't necessarily predict it, but there is a good possibility. Challenging flips are states that are going to be difficult to flip, but there's still some type of a probability. And possible flips are essentially states that will pretty much be guaranteed to not flip in 2024. So let's start off with the West Coast and move our way to the Sun Belt and the Rust Belt. Let's start off with Nevada. In Nevada in 2018, Jackie Rosen defeated incumbent Republican Dean Heller by 5 points, which is a pretty significant margin, especially because she also won a majority. And although 2018 was a very favorable year for Democrats, she was still facing an incumbent, and betting markets and many polling metrics had this race as a toss-up. So I do believe that she'll probably hang on, but it's definitely most certainly possible that she ends up losing re-election. Now for the state of Arizona. This is a guaranteed flip. Kristen Sinema is currently as an independent, and she might not even run for re-election as an independent in 2024. And even if she runs, she is guaranteed to lose to either a Democrat or a Republican, because she is currently in pretty much 3rd place by every metric available. Therefore, this is definitely, most certainly, a guaranteed flip. Now going to the state of Montana. In the state of Montana, Jon Tester is a 3-time incumbent. He is running for, I believe, the 4th time, but he was in a fight for his life the first time he won re-election. Joe Manchin, in his first term, he won by close to 30 points. But Jon Tester, when he was first elected, only won by 3, and won by 3 pretty much in every single election that he has been re-elected for the past 3 times. This time, however, things are going to be different. In 2018, Democrats had a very nice showing, and it was not a presidential election year. But in 2024, this will be a presidential election year, which will most certainly hurt Jon Tester's chances of winning re-election. Further, he will probably have a much stronger challenger, someone who will pour millions, if not billions of dollars into this race to try and win re-election against Jon Tester, and I don't believe he'll hang on because, again, he may be able to overperform Biden by 10, but that's not going to be enough for him to actually win the state. Therefore, this is a likely flip. Now for the state of Texas. Texas, although it went to Ted Cruz by just a lean to tilt margin, it was only by less than 3 points. Beto O'Rourke, if he does run, he isn't as popular as he was in 2018, and 2024 is not going to be a blue wave year. Therefore, this is pretty much an impossible flip. Similar story in the state of Florida. Now for the state of Florida, Rick Scott had a surprising victory against incumbent Senator Bill Nelson. By every metric, Rick Scott was expected to lose, but he won against Bill Nelson by just 10,000 votes. This time, it's going to be very different. He is heavily favored, and although it's technically possible that Bill Nelson or some other Democrat pulls out a surprising victory against Rick Scott, it's pretty much still an impossible flip. Now going to the state of Michigan. And the state of Minnesota, and essentially the Rust Belt. First off, let's go to Minnesota. The incumbent Democrat there, Amy Klobuchar, won by 24 points. She won many of the rural areas, something Democrats cannot dream of doing in current elections. And although she'll not win by the same margin as she did last time, it's still pretty much speaking an impossible flip. We could see her margin narrow down, and I do expect that to happen, but she'll probably still win by a comfortable 10-point margin, so it's pretty much an impossible flip. Now for the state of Wisconsin. This one, it's actually possible, because incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin won by 11 points. This election will be much more competitive election. There will not be a blue wave, and Tammy Baldwin could face a much significantly stronger challenger than this no-name Republican that ran against her in 2018. Overall, I still think she'll hang on, but this is still technically speaking a possible flip. It's not very likely, but it's still possible. Now for the state of Michigan. Michigan, the incumbent there, Debbie Stabenow, won by 7 points, but she is not running for re-election. Instead, there will be another Democrat that will not have the incumbency advantage, and she won by least out of these three candidates, so it's definitely possible still to see her or some other Democrat lose this election for Democrats. Nonetheless, I don't see that happening, and Michigan is the bluest state out of the three states, so I do believe that this is a possible flip, but it's still very challenging for the Republican Party. Now for the state of Pennsylvania. This flip is also very challenging. We have Bob Casey, someone who is very popular in his home state, won by 13 points. And although he's not going to win by 13 points, Lou Barletta put up next to nothing. He was pretty much the Republican scapegoat. He didn't even try and contest this race. Even then speaking, this state in 2024 could still be a very tough road for Democrats to end up losing, because Republicans, they don't really have the strongest candidates here, and Bob Casey is a very good candidate. Joe Biden is expected to win the state on a presidential election level. And really, according to most of the metrics, Republicans don't have much of a realistic shot, and therefore this is still definitely a challenging flip. Now we have two final states, Ohio and West Virginia. Both states Trump won by 8 points and like 40 points in the state of West Virginia. Let's start with the state of Ohio. Now for the state of Ohio, Chair Brown won by 8 points or 7 points last election. However, Jim B. Renacci pretty much put up zero fight against him. Had he put up a fight, maybe Chair Brown would have lost in 2018. And 2024 is a presidential election year. Republicans are likely going to have better quality candidates. And overall speaking, things don't look very good for Chair Brown. And although he'll definitely overrun Joe Biden or whoever wins the Democratic nomination, he's definitely not going to win re-election in my opinion. So this is going to be a likely flip. The final state is the state of West Virginia. And again, Joe Manchin won his first election by somewhere like 30 points. But in 2018, despite there being a blue wave year, he barely hung on. Now he is still very electable in many ways, but he hasn't even declared that he'll run for re-election because he knows he'll probably lose. And overall speaking, things don't look very good for him. So I definitely think this is a likely flip for the Republican Party. Overall speaking, there are 4 likely flips: the states of Montana, Ohio, West Virginia, and Arizona. Arizona is interesting because it might flip from a previous Democrat to a current Democrat. But overall speaking, Montana, Ohio, and West Virginia are clearly favorable flips for the GOP. The states of Wisconsin and Nevada could also flip. Michigan and Pennsylvania, they're probably going to hold for Democrats. And Texas and Florida, they're probably going to hold for Republicans. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.